Hi, Awanju. Hello and welcome. My name is Amanda Nardi-Wallace. I'm the Assistant Director of Strategic Projects and Crisis here at NOPSEMA, and I'm speaking to you today from Burulu on Noongar Boodja. I start by acknowledging the Wadjuk people as the custodians of these lands and the law keepers of the oldest living culture. I give my respect to their elders past and present, and I also extend that respect today to the elders past and present on the lands of which you join me from, and to all of you who join me online here today. Thanks for coming along to our third session for the Resource Management Administration Regulations 2025, the RMA Regulations. This is our third session, our final session for the moment, and today will be recorded and made available on our websites after our session today. Please, while you're joining us, keep your microphones on mute throughout the session and raise the hand icon for any questions. The chat will be available throughout the session, so please feel free to add your questions into the chat as we go along. Our previous two sessions are still available on our website if there's anything you want to recap and go back over. And today's session is really about getting some further clarifications and getting ourselves ready for the March 31st go live date. What we're going to be talking about today, I'll start with just letting you know that we still have consultation open at the moment for our guidance note, the WOB content and level of detail guidance note. That's available for consultation and closes on the 13th of March, as well as the annual well integrity report template is up there as well for consultation and providing any feedback to us. The feedback to date has been encouraging, and it's assisting us to identify areas that we need any further clarification on. And if we need to publish any further FAQs to provide that clarity, we'll do so on our dedicated page as we come across them. Additionally, we've been meeting with our colleagues with the DISC group. Yesterday, we worked with them to continue to work through areas and do some clarity in that space. And today is really about giving that opportunity to have a little bit more engagement about the regulations. But I will just say, our engagement doesn't end on the March 31st when this goes live. We continue to work with our stakeholders all the time. We'll continue to update any FAQs, and we always work with a continuous improvement methodology to try and keep working through everything. For the morning, I'm just going to hand over now to our director, Stephen Bess, and he's just going to give us a little brief rundown on today's topics. So, Stephen, I'll pass over to you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. I'd like to introduce myself, Stephen Bess, Director, Well Integrity West. Today, we're going to be looking at three concepts, three areas: concept select, roles and responsibilities, annual well integrity reports. We've picked these three because these seem to be the ones that we're getting the questions coming back in on, but as Amanda alluded to, the consultation period is still open, so we would really encourage people to get in and ask their questions. We are also updating the FAQs based off of the meeting yesterday with DISC, so chances are your question may already be answered, so check in with the FAQs before you submit something through. Miles, who's beside me here, he'll be taking you through the three areas today. But again, please, if you have questions, either raise a hand or put your questions into the chat. So I'll hand over to Miles and he'll start walking you through the concept select and answering some of the questions that we've had come through so far.
Thank you, Stephen. Concept select. So a lot of questions about why this has been introduced into the regulations, and we thought the best way to explain this was to look at the explanatory statement. I won't read this out in full, but I'll let people read it at their own pace. Basically, the purpose of the change is to formalise safer by design principles in well design operations and management. So what does this mean? The detail required needs to be sufficient for NOPSEMA to assess that decisions made by the title holder when choosing particular well design, construction methodologies, and associated activities have sufficiently identified and assessed the risks and the mitigation management. Obviously, when we look at the different types of wells, we have different types of risk. So if we're looking at a brownfield development, where there's a great amount of detail known about formations, formation pressures, that may require less scrutiny from NOPSEMA and less information. However, if you're looking at a exploration well where there is little offset information, and that will require a greater detail of scrutiny. People have also asked what is required, what sort of information is required. We would suggest that people look at the ISO 16530, the section on basis of design, as that gives a lot of information on what should be considered when addressing or choosing the concept of the well that you're going to go with. Next slide, please. So roles and responsibilities. There's again a question on that of who does that refer to? So personnel who plan, approve or execute well work at any stage of a well life cycle. This does not mean that it should include anybody who is touching the well or involved in the well at a lesser activity. It means decision makers. The other question that has been raised is how the title holder may address the contractor, or address how the contractor is supplying the correct level of competency. Obviously, that would start with the contractor's management process, which we assume they would identify the competency of the personnel required for that contract. They then would have to ensure that the supplier is going to provide that level of people, and then we assume that that would be done by an auditing process of some sort. Additionally, they would have some method of ensuring that when the personnel come on board, that they do have that level of competency. It has been known that people have come offshore with not quite the right level of competency. Next slide, please. Annual well reports. There's been a lot of questions on this about when that can be submitted and if there's any flexibility. Unfortunately, the regulations on this are very prescriptive and we do not have any leeway on what time they should be submitted. You should also be aware that the acceptance dates of the WOMPs that are in force and when the anniversary are specified in the acceptance letter that we issue on acceptance of a WOMP. So that would be the anniversary date on which you would be supporting on which you would be providing the information for the well integrity report. I would suggest if you have any questions about what dates they may be, that you contact the focal point for the well integrity and confirm with them on what date that is. We can check with our records and confirm that for you. And that is the end of my session. I will hand back now to Amanda.
Great. Thank you, Miles. One more point we've had on the annual well integrity reports is around the template that's out currently and out for consultation, and some questions about why we're using templates going forward. A big thing that we're doing here at NOPSEMA is to try and get some better consistency across safety, wells and environment in how we undertake the reporting, and to make it a bit easier for yourselves as title holders about what is expected and what we need in those reports. Additionally, you've been generally contacted in relation to the moving to our digitisation project, the core project. And going into here, we're looking to make things simpler and more streamlined for you. So a lot of the templates that we're using are preparing you for integration into the core. So we do strongly encourage that our stakeholders do start to adopt the NOPSEMA templates that we have available and the forms that we have, because it is going to assist as we continue to move forward to make things much easier and to use the core system to help with some of the pre-populating of forms and templates into the future. So I'll give a short reminder as well about the transitional arrangements as we are coming into the 31st of March. It's creeping up on us very quickly. So if we have a revision of a WOMP that's been accepted under the old regulations, if the revision is submitted before the 31st of March, it's continuing to be assessed under those old regulations. If we have a revision for a WOMP that was accepted under the old regulations but has been submitted on or after the 31st, that will need to comply with the new regulations. And any new WOMP that's submitted to us before the 31st of March, which probably at this stage is unlikely to be completed for assessment, then that would need to be assessed against the new regulations as well. Any WOMPs that are accepted, they still remain in force. And it's key to make sure that, as we just mentioned before, that any WOPs that are in force are going to be applicable to that annual well integrity report from the start of these new regulations. So our content today is short because we wanted to keep a lot of time for our questions open out to the floor. So I'll just touch on, again, where you can find out information from us is on our dedicated webpage that we have. This is where we're publishing our guidance material. You can get the links to do the consultation. We'll publish the feedback, our response to feedback on there as well once we have gone through all of that. We are continuing to engage with stakeholders. We do welcome questions, and specific questions on your WOMPs can be submitted into your focal points for direct questions and clarity. And we continue to update the FAQ as we find things that are still unclear out for consultation. The dedicated page link is again in this presentation. If you do have questions that are related directly to NOPTA, we do encourage you to go direct to NOPTA for those questions as well, and we've provided the link as well for theirs. So the consultation closes on the 13th of March, and all the feedback that we get, we will consider it before we update the final guidance and before we publish the final form. I'll jump straight into questions, and I see I've got a couple into the chat. Just while I'm getting the chat in play, I'll jump to Barry Goodwin and have your question first, and then I'll go into the chat.
Yes, good morning. Barry Goodwin from Vermilion Energy. I've got a couple of questions, and I haven't had feedback from the DISC group on how it went yesterday. But on the reporting template, that template is incredibly painful as a Word document with a separate page for every well. Some companies are going to be submitting hundreds of pages. Why would we not be using some sort of spreadsheet with the same data requirements, but able to have a separate, essentially, as new column for each well? Like, I mean, we've got 25 wells, so it's manageable, but other companies have got hundreds of wells, and having a 2-page Word document for every well just seems incredibly archaic in today's age.
That's a good point, Barry. Most WOMPs do not have a huge amount of wells on them. As you say, you have a relatively small amount, but generally there's probably about 20 to 30 wells per WOMP. The other point on why we've used the Word format, that's actually part of the core process. So it is easier for us to import data in. As I think Amanda mentioned earlier, there's going to be a standardization of these types of format across all reporting into NOPSEMA. But however, we're very happy to receive feedback as we progress on this.
So are we required to use the Word document, or can we submit a spreadsheet with the same level of information?
I think, as Amanda suggested, we strongly recommend you follow that template.
Okay, and longer term, will there be some sort of ASCII file? Like I'm aware of the core process, so will there be a far easier way of submitting this than for some companies, several hundred pages of documents?
Yes, I think so. Amanda's nodding happily on that. Yes, there will be.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes,
second question
yes,
is
Barry,
around...
we do believe when we go into the new system that it'll actually be able to do a bit more of a pre-population works into there. We're not 100% sure exactly how it'll all unfold, but as we are moving into the new system, because all of your content will be within there already and it's much smarter than how we currently are set up, we believe it'll start to make things much simpler going forward.
Okay, so it's an extensive administrative burden for us to transfer data from our well integrity system into a 2-page Word document for each well and then submit it to you guys. Like, it's a massive increase in bureaucratic red tape to go to that reporting format, as opposed to exporting it as a spreadsheet, which would be far simpler. I just feel that, I understand it's about you guys being able to accept data in a standard format from multiple operators, but there is a significant administrative burden associated with that. But that's okay, we'll work through that. Second question's around the WOMP and the basis design requirements. So Wandoo wells production wells started drilling in 1993, and a number of wells have been drilled over the years. I understand, Miles, your reference to ISO 16530, but we get challenged all the time by the regulator about cherry picking bits out of various standards. I'm still quite confused about the requirements for, you mentioned brownfields, but in fact, Wandoo, it's infill drilling, so it's essentially the same well design parameters that have been in use now since 1993. I'm not at all clear in my mind what level of detail we would need to put in our new WOMP for the 2 wells we're planning on drilling next year that are essentially duplicates of 20 odd wells that already exist. Could you elaborate on how that would work?
Yes, as I mentioned, on something, for example, on the Wandoo field, where the field is fully understood, then the level of detail would be less. In fact, you'll already have a concept selected for that and risks identified for that. So it shouldn't be additional work for you to provide that information, because I'm sure you'll have the risk register already set for those drilling those wells.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'll jump to some of the comments in the chat. So we have from Aline McVeer, Shell here, how will acceptable be tested in the initial WOMP submitted after April 1st, understanding that more advice will follow later on? Okay, jump to the room in there for Miles and Stephen.
That's something that, sorry, did anybody else want to answer that?
Yeah, so it's basically on the annuity of WOMP. So if the WOMP is accepted on the 1st of March 26, I presume is the question, or 25, the 1st of March 26, then the report will become due a year later, 14 days. So that's 27. Does that answer the question?
Sorry, I've got two questions, and I think I'm muddling you up. So my first question is, so the difference between acceptable, ALARP and acceptable. So the what's ALARP, acceptable and appropriate. See, I'm getting myself confused. So with appropriate being a measure that we have to look at now in ALARP, how will appropriate be assessed? Like if I submit a WOMP on April 1st, how will we initially know to assess what's appropriate? Will that be measured by NOPSEMA?
I think we might have to take that offline, Ali. I'm not quite clear on what the question is. So
are you talking about acceptable?
Acceptable levels.
That is a new, so that it would be acceptable, not appropriate, if that is what you mean.
Yeah, I'm all over the place.
I think we better no. Ali, would it be possible to take this one offline, and when we can actually put it onto the frequently asked questions later, because I'm not quite clear on the question.
No problem. Can I ask my other question about well integrity reports?
Yes.
So I have a WOMP that was approved February 2025. And my next WOMP won't be in force until May 26. Do I need to submit a well integrity report for that February 25 well on the 14th of April?
No, because it's prior to it won't be submitted until February 27, from my understanding of that.
Thanks.
Okay, so the next question I have here is from Victoria from Woodside. So the first question is, in regard to ongoing monthly reporting until an issue is resolved, what is the definition of resolved? If we say we have a failure of a gauge and do a risk assessment to determine an alternative approach to monitoring a barium, does this constitute resolved?
In that example, I think it would constitute resolved. It is where you have gone through the process to assess the risk and determine mitigation measures for it.
Okay, and the second question there is commentary around WOMPs needing to be kept current. Can you please explain further on this? If we have a failed gauge, would that generate an up review of the WOMP? If a valve exceeds API on a leak of test, would that generate an up rev of the WOMP? Do all updates, up revs need to be submitted for assessment to NOPSEMA as a revision in part, or just updated in our internal document management system?
On something like that failure, it would be a review in your internal document process, but also you would have supplied or sent the 3-day report explaining how you were going to address that, and then you would finally follow up with the final report explaining how you're addressing that. Therefore, you wouldn't require a full revision or partial revision of the WOMP.
Okay, jump on to Mike from Woodside. Stage WOMP information paper states requirement to submit the title holder's own technical detail rather than a distilled version produced solely for the regulator, whereas the new WOMP content and level of detail guidance note requests distilled descriptions. Will you please clarify that requirement?
Thank you for that, Mike. That guidance was initially written for the 2016 regulations. We have done a very light touch on the update of the guidance, and we will be addressing the staged WOMP submission and the guidance following this process. So it will be changed. It just hasn't got into that point of the process yet for addressing.
Thanks, Miles. Appreciate it. Yes, it seems to be that there's a requirement for some alignment there, but that's great. Thanks for the feedback. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Now, another question from Keith Brand now. A new note is included to clarify that the effect of paragraph 78.3d is that with the written approval of NOPSEMA, a title holder may submit a WOMP that applies to specific well activities to be undertaken during the life of that well or to a certain stages of well activities to which the WOMP is intended to apply. This implies that NOPSEMA will accept a WOMP for a specific well activity, e.g. intervention campaign that is not included in the overarching WOMP, or that NOPSEMA may accept a WOMP for various stages of well life cycle, e.g. well construction, production, intervention, well P&A. Can we clarify on that?
Thank you for that, Keith. That is something that we've addressed already with the existing WOMP process. So if, for example, you have a production WOMP and you tend to carry out an intervention or a sidetrack on a well, the method we've used is for that WOMP to be specific to that well. So the well is taken out of the production WOMP, put into the drilling or intervention WOMP, and then once that process is complete, the well is transferred back into the production WOMP, and that operational drilling or intervention WOMP is then closed off. So it is a relatively straightforward process to carry out.
Okay, thanks, Miles.
Okay. Go to Radek from Santos. When revising an existing enforced production lifecycle WOMP, is concept select information for the wells covered under this WOMP expected to be included in the revised WOMP?
Thank you, Radek. That's a good question. We've looked at this internally, and our suggestion is that the concept select would actually be the final stages of drilling, which would be your operational envelope for that WOMP, giving all the details of the pressure limitations, etc., for that WOMP, or for that well, I apologise. So rather than concept select, you've moved on to the well operating envelope, which is generally delivered at the end of the drilling process. So that will give you the operating envelope for the well.
Okay, that's the last of the questions that we've got online at the moment. So I'll open out to any raised hands questions if anyone's got anything extra thereafter today. Good. We've gone through quite a few juicy questions today. And thank you very much for the questions we've got to date so far. We are taking all the feedback on board, and we do note the concerns around administration burden and things with our new forms. It's always something that is on our mind to how we make these as simple as possible moving forward. And the guidance note that is out at the moment and the template that's out at the moment, we do highly recommend that you go online, have a look at these and give us any feedback and ways we can improve things into there. I'll leave it a couple more moments just for any other questions, anything else anybody would like to submit through. I thank very much our team today for being online and Miles here to answer our questions for us. Okay, great. That seems that we've covered everything for today. Thank you very much for joining. We don't have any other sessions planned at this stage. However, if we get any specific questions for anything, we will make sure our FAQs are updated. We'll make sure we put on FAQs in relation to some of the questions that we've had today, and we'll keep continuing to engage with our stakeholders as we move on. Thank you very much for your time. I've given you back half an hour in your day, so thank you, and we will speak to you all again soon.
Thank you, Amanda.
Thanks a lot.